Hi, I wanted to share my experience with joy. Joy is not an energy that I have felt very much in my life. The first time I felt it consciously was when I was 31, and I remember it vividly, and it was very surprising. It was the first reference point of experience that I had feeling joy. And I've heard other people talk about it, and I had periodically seen others display or express joy, but I kind of thought that they were full of shit, or that it was some kind of a mask or something. And of course, that was a projection of my own because I hadn't felt joy before in my life. Anyway, so the first time I felt joy, I was 31, and I was watching a dance from a group of students from South America. And I didn't know them, they were strangers to me. And I was fully present and just watching the beauty of human expression through dance and song and sharing something. And it filled up my whole body, and I had the biggest smile on my face. And it was beautiful. And then it disappeared. Now, I've had good moods in my life, but never before then had I experienced joy. Through somatic shadow work meditations, I uncovered this memory when I was a baby, not even able to walk yet, and my mother was holding me, and I was energetically and emotionally attempting to attach to her, but I couldn't. She had a very high trauma load, and she had this nervous system state of flight, anxiety, fear. But there was also this kind of dull sorrow, this melancholy feeling. And even though I didn't have capacity to consciously decide this, and I didn't know how this happened or why, my energy field changed its frequency to match hers. So throughout my life, I had this low level melancholy and this kind of dull sorrow and this fear and anxiety. It's kind of like a copy and paste of her nervous system, an emotional background into my system, into my field. And that was always running in the background. And I would get comments about this often in my life. Comments about how I didn't seem happy, Why do you always look sad? Things like that. And I didn't understand until a few years ago when I came across this. And even though I didn't have a cognitive memory of that experience as a baby, the physiological and energetic memory was stored in my body, and I was able to access that. There was also this other component where in my childhood, it was not safe to feel or express joy. That would have gotten squashed real quick. And I didn't understand at the time, but I do now. And there's something that joy does. Joy, when it's felt and expressed, it highlights these denser energies in the body, things like grief, hatred, unworthiness, fear, anxiety. It has this ability to kind of go down in the subconscious and pull out these energies that don't match in frequency with joy. And so joy actually makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable because it's highlighting these energies in their system. And you can see it in adults when kids are really joyful, and kind of adults kind of, they do and say things to calm the child down or something, you know. Or you look around in our culture, you know, and it's like there's like one time a year where joy and magic is like socially acceptable, and that's like around, you know, the winter holidays or whatever. And the rest of the time you kind of look around at people, even though there's people that feel joy, of course, but it's a serious, productive, proving my worth. The human game is so serious. And so, kind of observing this in larger society, how, you know, even with TV and a lot of mainstream music or the media, there's an absence of joy. And I was talking about this with my sister the other day. And the reason it came up was because I started feeling joy more. I've been going to these women's groups and song circles and have been feeling this joy. Like the kind of joy where you're beaming, where you're radiating it out into the space around you, where it fills up your whole body and you're super present and energized. And there's a sense of well-being and this joy. It highlights these denser energies in my body, usually in my gut, in my heart. There'll be a burning in my chest, or there'll be like a nauseous stabbing pain in my gut. So my body has been slowly acclimating to the frequency of joy. And every time it arises, it kind of acts like a little warrior, where it's like calling out to all these denser energies in my system that can't really share the same space with joy. Kind of evokes them to the surface to be transmuted or released. And the first time this happened in recent, it was this a few months ago, there was this terrible pain in my gut. And I had been feeling this joy for probably an hour in my women's group. And there was a stabbing pain in my gut that just kept getting stronger and stronger. And there was like a swelling of my belly, and it felt very full and uncomfortable. And what was happening was that because of the presence of joy, this energy could not hide. It could not hide in my system anymore. It became very loud, very obvious. And as I was driving home after group, my body began to retch, and this immense rage and this energy of hatred and judgment, fear started to express through my system. It was very potent and very interesting to watch the body's ability to translate what this energy was, and also to start to move through the system and transmute it, metabolize it. And there was fatigue the next day. There's a tremendous amount of energy being surfaced and processed through. And all I did was just feel it and witness it. And the body did the rest. The intelligence of the body, because the body knows how to release, how to metabolize these energies that are incongruent with our essential nature or our natural vibration. And one of the qualities of our natural vibration is this joy. And so I've consistently, about every couple of weeks, been feeling this joy. And every time I feel this joy, and I'm present with it, and I feel it in my body, it highlights these other energies that are incompatible with joy. And so, yeah, I kind of had this visual of joy. And this is just my experience, an image that came to me to kind of externalize or create some image or archetype of joy to connect with it in a deeper way. But the image that arose as I was kind of connecting with joy was this guy in a white robe surrounded by light, and he was just beaming and dancing around and kind of inviting these creatures that were all around him to join in the dance to celebrate life. And they were like, no. They couldn't handle the light, they couldn't handle the frequency. So they were kind of, in this image that arose, they were kind of shrinking and not able to withstand the light and the frequency of joy. And this image, of course, arose to help me understand the role of joy and what joy can assist us to do. And the thing about it is that there are parts of the psychological self that suppress joy for reasons of protection. Maybe it's not safe to feel and express joy for some reason or another. There's many reasons for that. And so over the last 5 years, I've kind of come across a few of these parts that have suppressed joy, that have limited my ability to feel joy. And they always have a reason. And for me in my life, one of the reasons was if I felt and expressed joy, there was a fear that it would be snuffed out. And there was an attempt to control the joy so that I wasn't giving power over to my mother to snuff it out, that I was deciding to snuff joy and keep it hidden. And I came across this other part that was kind of holding on to joy, like putting it in a locked box, keeping it safe and secret so that nobody could take it away or dim it or use false power to snuff it out. So there was a part of self protecting it. There were parts of self that were suppressing the feeling because it wasn't safe. There was social consequences to feeling and expressing joy. And when my body felt safe enough, it gave me a little taste when I was 31. It gave me a little taste of what joy was. I mean, it felt like a big taste. But only at that time did the body's intelligence know that it was safe enough to allow joy to begin to emerge, to be experienced. And so joy is a very powerful ally. And it's not as though we are consciously deciding to not feel joy or to feel joy. It's a natural emergence of a quality of who we are that can be evoked by something, or it can be causeless. But never in my life have I just consciously decided to not feel joy. I don't want to feel joy. Or consciously decided to feel joy. It's kind of like a gift or a taste of a quality of who we really are. It's a quality of who we really are that emerges when we're ready to feel it. There's a lot of things obscuring joy in the system that don't really, how would I say that? They're incompatible. Like, for example, joy and hatred, or joy and rage. It's not a typical human experience to have both of those energies being felt and expressed in the same moment. There's one or the other, right? So there's a lot of beliefs and protective parts and a lot of repressed emotions that are kind of running in the background and that surface that kind of prevent us from feeling joy. So when enough of those have been released from the system, you start to get more and more access to joy. And then joy can be your comrade in the healing journey, in the awakening journey, in the process of embodiment. It can highlight these energies that are ready to go, that are incompatible with the essence of who we are. So joy. I wrote this poem about joy last night, actually. About how joy is kind of like a beast master, or yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to share this thing about joy, and also I was just kind of feeling into it and just noticing that, like, you know, this energy of joy isn't really transmuted out into the collective like other energies, you know. Like if you look at mainstream media, there's a lot of fear. There's, you know, these energies of division and being a victim and judgment and anger and outrage and all these different kind of energies that are projected into our bodies, projected into our energy fields. So when we watch the media and TV shows and listen to music that has a lot of fear or objectification or judgment or, you know, division or hatred or, you know, things like greed or consumption, those are very, very common frequencies that are, you know, transmitted out into the collective. But what you don't see a lot of in the mainstream is joy. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. The absence of joy being transmitted out shows us something about the health of humanity, the level of sickness, the level of disconnection, the level of division and judgment and hatred that we're all witnessing every day. These messages of fear and division that are being broadcasted out, those are not harmless. And there is a intention there. It also highlights where we're at as a species, you know? What we're holding on to, what every one of us is carrying in our systems, in our fields, in our bodies, in our muscles and tissues and fascia and the structure of our bones. All these energies that are so common and prevalent. Now, I'm not saying it's absent, completely absent in our culture or our world, but that shit impacts you. The fear and the anger and the outrage and the division and the judgment, all that accumulates in your system and makes it even more difficult to experience things like peace and joy and connection. And so it's important to pay attention to what we're listening to and what we're watching, and not pay attention in like a hypervigilant, fearful way, but just like How does my body feel while I'm watching this? How does my body feel while I'm listening to this song? These words that are being spoken have energy, they have information that penetrates into our systems, that penetrates into our psyches. It matters. And yeah, I just think about the only videos I come across on, I'm not really big into social media at all, but like on YouTube or something, that have this kind of quality of joy is like, you know, children laughing and playing, or these animals, or things like that, videos like that, that are, they have this innocent joy to them. But other than that, there's a lot of fear, a lot of us versus them, a lot of victimness, a lot of hatred and judgment and separation and false power. And those are a lot of the energetic frequencies that are being transmitted into our systems. And it's really unfortunate. So there are communities and there are messages that are rooted in peace and joy and love and understanding of this really difficult human experience that everybody is going through. And those are important to connect with. Little messages of joy, little messages of peace, little, including those into our lives is very important. Because these other denser energies will accumulate in your system, and it will obscure our ability to see clearly, to feel joy and peace and love, and they contaminate our perspective of each other and of ourselves. And so that's what I wanted to share, some things that I found within myself through somatic shadow work and meditation, things that come up when I'm stretching or doing yoga. A lot of these energies, they need to arise in the system and be felt, to be witnessed with presence. And the body will do the rest. The body knows how to metabolize and release these energies. So that's what I wanted to share to all the beautiful and curious human beings, all my human family, and yeah, this experience can be very difficult. And if you're going through the process of releasing trauma or going through the awakening process of embodiment, you're going to come across these really dense, difficult energies to feel. But just remember that they're not who you are. They're just energies that have accumulated in your system, memories that have accumulated in your system, beliefs and emotions that have accumulated in your system. That's what they are. And they need our attention to be released. And then the body can do the rest. So, yeah, joy. What a cool frequency. Take care of yourselves.